Hello and welcome to the One Shot Show where GMs go to level up. I'm Paddy. I'm joined as always by Matt. And Matt, I've come here today with a beast on my back. I have come here burdened and I'm frustrated, and it's rare for me to get into this level of worked upness. But I know that we have a D&D. It's called the One Shot Show, and I know that we talk about ways that GMs can come here to level up. And I was watching one of the worst GM'd things that I've seen in a long time recently, and I was watching it on New Year's Day along with millions of other people. And I was watching. How do you feel about Stranger Things?
I think I feel the way that many people do, where the first season is an absolute brilliant piece of television. It has continued to be fairly solid. The gaps between releases has been far too slow. It is a symptom, nay, a wart and blight that is emblematic of some big issues in the television world these days from a production standpoint. And I have not watched the final season because, by all accounts, it's a massive disappointment.
It's a bit of a clustercuss for sure. So you're up to season 4.
I've wrapped up
this
season 4,
okay.
And I was already starting to not care anymore.
Okay.
I'll freely admit, but I was like, look, I've invested this much, and the quality's still here, so I'll see it through to the end. But in the years that had passed, I just kind of stopped caring.
Yeah.
Fell out of love with it.
Okay, so there's already a lot of discourse about
We
this
come
season.
into this final season with a lot of baggage about
We do.
a lot of feelings about Stranger Things in the first place.
We
And
do.
regardless of its quality, it's already got to do this much to remind us why we loved it in the first place.
That's absolutely right.
But that's not the gripe you have, is it, Paddy?
That's not the gripe that I have in this particular case, though it is joined to. The season. I'm going to spoil it for you a little.
Ahead.
I'm going to spoil it for you if you haven't heard it, so please maybe tune out, then tune on back in. The season's ending. We have our Return of the King gamut of character endings. There's a lot to wrap up. But we finish with the D&D table. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is appropriate. The introduction scene to our characters way back in season 1 begins at a D&D table. They face the Demogorgon for the first time. D&D's been awesome as a result. You know, D&D, Stranger Things, incredible marriage of storytelling, of metaphor, brought D&D into a much wider sphere of knowledge. The world knows the name Vecna, all these things like that. And for the most part, I've really enjoyed the games of D&D that I've seen played in that show. The first game, where it was lower level characters and a hugely terrifying Demogorgon that appears on the scene, it captured something of the game for me. Season 4, the big Eddie Mudson game. You remember this one?
Yep.
It's like great. And that is the thing that captures about D&D for me is the power of the natural 20 and that big slow-mo across the table. And so when we arrived at that final scene, I was like, oh, I got really interested. The most interested that I've been in the whole season as a D&D player, as somebody who's followed the show for all of this time. Because I was like, oh, we are now at the end of Stranger Things and we're at the end of their campaign, presumably. And that's the way that it goes. Brief summary of what happens at the table. I wrote it down because I was looking at the play that's happening there. Time has passed. They're no longer against the Demogorgon. They're facing down Strahd von Zarovich.
Okay, sure.
Big Villy. Heroes Party. They're about 4 years into the campaign at this point. I did the math on that, and I was like, that's quite impressive.
So it's a long run of Strahd, but
it's a
fair
very
enough.
long Strahd, very long Strahd. Strahd has 30 hit points left.
Okay.
We're told this. And Will the Wise, Will, is the only standing hero that is left in the party. But the GM has introduced this thing called a suppression stone. Magic repression is at play at the table. And this is the final round. Strahd's turn is coming up. Will's turn is now. Strahd has 30 HP. Will cannot cast any magic. The table debates for a little bit about whether he should strike with his staff and they average it out to 6 damage. And then everyone is sort of like in disgust at the game at this point. Max is now part of the D&D game. Because
Asterisks on that, I've got a gripe, but continue.
Max is now part of the D&D game. And she's sort of like expressing like wait, this is it? This is how it all ends? This is Dungeons and Dragons? This is the ending? And I'm going like, okay, nice. We're setting up. And then right as Will is about to roll to hit with his staff, he knows it's useless. Everyone's super sad and it's a bummer ending. Right as he's about to roll, Dustin leans across and grabs his wrist full of dice. Don't know why it's full of dice. Shouldn't he? Maybe anyway, la-di-da. And says, the prophecy from the Abbey of St. Markovia. And then they all dive back through their books because there is a highly powerful mage in this world at the Abbey of St. Markovia, which I couldn't find in the original supplement, but is very much part of the 5e supplement, which is the bigger overarching thing about this season, is that they use 5e language to describe 80s D&D, which feels a bit...
It's anachronistic.
It's weird.
You know, I'm gonna cut you off on that one because, look, I understand for those of you who watched Stranger Things like I did and you felt a lot of 80s nostalgia, it's still, you know, a show about stuff happening. Let go of the anachronisms. It's okay that they got a few things wrong. It's about how you felt about the 80s. If you want to watch something that is about how it was the 80s once and in the 80s it was the 80s, watch the movie Air, which is, on the surface, about Michael Jordan signing with Nike and the development of the Air Jordan. It's a great movie. That's like 3 sentences worth of story, but the most important thing about the movie is that it is set in the goddamn 80s, and it gets everything exactly right. So if what you want is the 80s, please stop watching Stranger Things. That's about something else.
It's like it's the way the D&D has been employed, especially in the 5th season, is it throws people who know the game out as opposed to drawing them in.
Yes.
Like it causes us to lose the verisimilitude.
You get the distinct impression that the Duffer Brothers don't actually know the difference, or they don't appreciate the gravity of the difference. They think what they're doing is a boon, a benefit to the writing. It's actually a detraction.
This is beyond, like, it's not the rule semantics that bothers me at this point. So we're up to this big moment. The players have all decided. They dive into their books. They find out that there is an NPC who said that in your hour of need, I will come and help you. They find the details about this NPC. They read out a line of dialogue that NPC said, and then the GM fakes them out for a moment, goes like nothing's happening, but then the GM slams down a little mini of this mage character who arrives on the scene, proceeds to cast Sunbeam and Slay Strahd, and then, I see a face emerging, and then the players all whoop and cheer and celebrate and go absolutely nuts. And then the GM does a very short little tie-up of the campaign, and the D&D of Stranger Things is kind of done. And I was sitting there going, I feel like this show has shown me some incredible moments that Dungeons & Dragons can have. And even the character of Max goes in and goes like, wait, that's the ending? You're a master storyteller? And then there's a fold out, there's another level of spoiler, the I believe lines. But in your mind as a GM, this is the finale of the campaign. Yeah. What's sitting oddly with you about this moment?
I actually don't think it's odd at all. I actually think it's flawlessly apt as an extended metaphor for the overall narrative of Stranger Things.
Oh, I agree.
In the campaign, in the dialogue delivered by the characters as written by the showrunners, the Duffer Brothers have wrote a shit ending, right? And then they also wrote a shit ending to the show as a whole. So actually, that makes perfect sense to me. They don't know how to end shit for fuck, so they got it wrong on both levels.
It's wild. It's like, and especially because it feels like nothing that the players did, it feels like in that moment, mattered.
No.
It feels like it's something that...
Why didn't the guy just like show up and dunk on Strahd from the get-go? Why did everyone else have to go through the ringer first? Yeah. There's nothing wrong with having allies. And I mean, if we're going to correct something here, right, there's nothing wrong with them having powerful allies coming into the final fight. But they shouldn't be the ones like doing the fight, right? It should have been, hey, here's this powerful ally that can show up and disable the anti-magic stone, but you've still got to cast your spell.
Down characters or
something
this, that, the other.
Something that supports you, or have the powerful ally show up and get murked.
Yeah.
Right? Like, up the stakes. There's so many great things you can do with it.
Absolutely. I was like, my exact response in the moment that was laid down was kind of like, I was kind of like, and now the players are going to get their agency back again.
Their big revive, everyone's back for the final moment. Like what Stranger Things so often does, where all the characters return to the one place, they all rejoin for the big final sequence.
Yeah.
No.
You have no idea. As someone who's not seen the season.
There could have been metaphors.
As a person who has not seen the season, it's there is further deconstruction of that D&D scene that happens with the players at the table, and then it ties it into the way that the show had ended, and they feel so similarly contrived and disappointing, and it feels like a writer has dived down onto the table and just quickly put a bunch of small, not the most beloved or important details in place so that the heroes cannot lose, in a way that that me and my partner, who both play D&D, we sat there afterwards, and of all the things that we could have talked about at the end of that show, it was to go man, the D&D felt like it was knifed in the back in this one, and they don't let you forget about it. The closing credits are it's a beautiful rendition of a 80s D&D book. It's gorgeous. It really keeps it present in your imagination to go this is what this show is partly at heart.
I mean, it's become there's almost the show becomes a zombie of itself, right? It becomes a skinwalker in its own skin. It's a self-parody without the actual funniness or awareness of a parody, in that they had D&D as a part of it, because they're yeah, this is what these friends in this small town that are a bit geeky would do in this time, in this place, and it anchored us to where we were, the 80s. And it was great for that. They also liked using D&D as an extended metaphor, because that was a way that the characters could relate it to things they did understand. It wasn't for the audience's benefit. And what's clearly happened is the popularity of the show absolutely went off. Popularity of D&D has continued to rise. It was already on the rise prior to that, but it's continued to rise in light of that, and at certain junctures in tandem with that, with tie-in products. So they went, okay, let's continue this. There's this is something that the audience seems to like. We'll do more of it. But then it started to become
an Eddie Munson
D&D.
box set came out the same week as the premiere.
It started to become D&D for the sake of the audience, for what they perceive as the audience's benefit, which firstly has lost the meaning of it within the story, and secondly got it wrong for the audience, because the writers don't actually know the difference. And I don't expect show writers to know all the ins and outs of these kinds of things all the time. It can be very difficult to keep on top of oh, this metal didn't exist in Europe in the year 1200, so that armor is wrong.
Yeah.
Shut up. There's always going to be some sweaty nerd on YouTube that tells you why they actually shouldn't have spun cloth at this particular place. Who cares, right? What did you think about the affair that he had? For goodness sake. But they've started to do it in service of the audience, which makes the failure unforgivable. Because they've gone, and I don't even think that was. I don't know how consciously they would have actually done that. They probably sat around the writers' room. They would have gone, "Oh, we could tie it into D&D. We could have this D&D series." They're like, "Yeah, that's great. D&D's such an integral part of Stranger Things. Oh my God, perfect. It ties it all together." But they forgot the function that it served unintentionally, and no one ever really looked at it in the right way to go, "Wait, hold on. This isn't coming from the same spiritual place. This isn't serving the same storytelling function. It's not anchoring us into a sense of place and time. It's not informing us who these characters are." I'm reminded of the opening dialogue to Pulp Fiction. Absolute masterclass, because they talk about nothing, and yet you learn everything important about these two characters. They're professionals in the criminal world. They know each other but aren't necessarily friends. Their boss is very scary, and one of them is going to be hanging out with the boss's wife that night. And they've spent the whole time just talking smack about burgers and fries.
Yeah, it doesn't feel
beautiful. But the movie doesn't end with a conversation about a McChicken.
It's so I felt the same way multiple times. I was kind of I didn't feel like they were people at a table actually playing D&D anymore.
No.
I felt like they were in a narrative confine that that didn't have a drop of the spirit of what it began with. And here we are. I feel a little purged of that time.
Do you feel good now?
I feel okay. I feel okay. I feel like I hope that people who play D&D watched that final bit and similarly went like, I don't know that that's how I'd want my campaign to end. And as a GM, you don't want to end a campaign like the Duffer Brothers did.
Especially since, honestly, it's taken so long for that show to be finished that there are probably people who got introduced to D&D by watching Season 1, Episode 1, have since got on to join their first game, finish that first game, start another one, and then see how badly it gets handled by the end. It's like that classic thing of everyone seems to know what they're talking about on the internet until they're talking about something where you're a subject matter expert, and you realize that everyone's talking absolute bollocks all the time. Man, what a weird letdown. The strangest thing of all.
Strangest thing of all. Thank you so much. Hey, guys, this has been the One Shot Show, and we're going to see you next time.
If you're enjoying listening to the One Shot Show, why not support us on Patreon? Go to patreon.com/OneShotShow, where you'll be able to find video versions of our episodes, long-form bonus episodes that we release every single month, access to our community Discord server. You can pose questions for our special Q&A episodes, and if you're back at the higher tiers, you can even vote on what questions we cover in our show. Check it out.